Good evening, and I hope I'm not startling anyone coming on right after 6 o'clock, but I know that you're usually used to hearing me at 6:30. My name is Bruno, and I am the host of the CERTS Presents show. But tonight, because of special sports coverage here on WRLR 98.3 FM, the voice of Lake County, we are going to be doing our CERTS Presents show between now, just 6:02, and we'll be off just before 7, so we can get you to Rusty Silver and the team for girls high school playoff basketball, Deerfield and Wakanda. I am joined, as always, by Ann Walker, by Mary Beatman.
Hi.
By Terry Cox.
Hello.
Jill Hughes will get here. Ann.
Lou.
Yes. Tell people.
We are sponsored by the Lake County Health Department, Fremont Township, and the Citizen Court Council of Lake County, who lends us their chairperson, Terry Cox.
All right. And Mary.
Hi.
Tell people how they can listen to us.
Well, there's TuneIn Radio, which is an app on your iPhone. You can go to WRLR.com. No?
.fm.
.fm. Oh, wait. WRLR.fm on what?
Computer.
The computer. And right now you can tune us in at 98.3.
Right, on the radio.
FM on the radio.
There you are. Okay, well, thank you. And Terry.
Yes.
What's new in your life? There's always something going on.
I'm just a little confused right now.
How is that different? All right.
I know.
We won't explain that.
I know I am on WRLR 98.3 FM.
Well, you're in the right place. And if you're listening, you're in the right place. We have a lot of ground to cover. We have a great guest, an old friend of ours returning, and I've been remiss in not getting to him over the years. He was really on in our early years. A great author, a prolific author, by the way, and a doctor, and we'll cover a lot of that. And we've been covering it, but folks, it seems every week we come in here, and there's new news regarding these public health items, either just in Lake County or worldwide with the coronavirus, and we're going to be talking about those again. And then in the second half hour, Terry, you have Sergeant Struck, Lake County Sheriff's Department.
Right, and he's going to be talking about the Scots law that changes as of January 1st.
And we hope to get a little preview from Rusty, because not only tonight is there going to be playoff basketball, but there's a special broadcast concerning Mundelein High School on Sunday. Who's going to be playing at the United Center? Wow. What else? What else before we get to Dr. Franklin? Well, am I missing something, Ann?
Well, we've got to talk about the coronavirus. We've got to talk about Legionnaire's disease, the flu.
Well, then I think we're going to dial up Dr. Franklin right now. Let's see. Here we go. Oops. There we go. Now everybody can hear that, hopefully.
Hello.
Hey, Corey.
Hey, Lou.
How are you?
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm all excited. They're trying to tell me to calm down, but it's been a while. I was telling the audience beforehand, you were really, I think, on in our first year, and we're in our 6th year, and I've been remiss not trying to get you on again, because you can just speak on anything.
Oh, I thought it took you 5 years to recover from my first one.
No. Well, back then, I think you had recently published Cook County ICU, discussing your experiences, over 25 years? With emergency medicine at Cook County Hospital. You were, had finished your tour of duty, so to speak, on that.
Right.
And you're still doing, you're still practicing somewhat, is that correct?
Still practicing somewhat, yeah, and then Cook County ICU is still in print, so, if you can find a bookstore, go get it at the bookstore.
Okay. But since then, you've released another book.
Another book.
And again, that was...
Yeah,
Yeah, and what's that about?
That's about different topics in medicine, just medical essays on topics in medicine and how they relate to society today. General interest topics.
Okay. And that was published, last year or year before?
Year before.
Okay. And I heard recently pen to paper again, or is it finger to keystroke but nowadays? But when's the next one coming out?
Well, we hope to have, I'm working with a couple people on a project to do a book on a writer's guide to college essays to help high school kids who are applying to college with their college essays. So we're trying to write a writer's guide to college essays.
Okay, well, good luck.
We'll have a little different direction.
Good luck on that. And readers of the Tribune will see you every once in a while?
There you go. Every once in a while, that's right. You know, no politics. You get enough politics. Everybody else has an opinion. I don't need one.
Okay. All right. Well,
so you're going to is he going to have a regular, Dr. Corey, Dr. Franklin, are you going to have a regular column in the Tribune about health?
No, the Tribune is, they're in flux, so they use me every once in a while when I have a good idea or when they really need something bad. Usually when I have a good idea on baseball or just culture in general.
Oh, cool.
So no, that's a lot of work. And Tribune, they've got good writers there.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we've been talking about this on our show because we cover public interest and emergency and preparedness issues here on the CERTS Presents show. And, the last few weeks we've been talking about the coronavirus, but it seems not to go away. It doesn't seem to get any better. And frankly, and I'm not, well, I think a lot of people are pointing the finger at the Chinese government. But I'm just not happy with the responses from any government out there and how they're dealing with it, because we're getting a lot of, we got it handled. And then the next day you wake up and, there's, a new case here, a new case there. There's a fatality there. And I know when we spoke recently, you had some particular thoughts on that. And since you're a free agent, so to speak, you're only out there selling your own books. Give us your thoughts on what's going on with Corona.
Well, it's hard to know exactly what's going on because the virus originated in Wuhan in China, and, the Chinese communists, they keep a pretty tight rein on information, and I don't think they let out a lot of information until there was a pretty rapid spread of the virus. The coronavirus can spread fairly rapidly. It's a fairly hardy virus, and so we're dependent on them for most of our data. And all we can go by for the most part for the last couple of weeks is the data out of China. And now we're starting to get some isolated data from other countries, from these cruise ships, and from every continent. So it's hard to know exactly how infectious it is, whether the numbers are going up linearly, exponentially, or whether they're leveling off, and what the exact death rate is. We have to speculate on a lot of that stuff because, frankly, you can't trust all the data you're getting out of communist China.
All right. Well, it seemed really strange to me that those cruise ships were particularly hit or became subject to quarantines.
Right. One of the problems with the coronavirus is it spreads very easily. You can be asymptomatic. So anybody who had contact with the virus, presumably when they were in China, or the couple of people who were out of China who got on a cruise ship, it's very, very hard to, and that's like a lot of viruses, like norovirus, which is the typical virus that spreads on cruise ships. But coronavirus can spread very quickly. It can spread in asymptomatic hosts, and there's really not a lot you can do other than quarantine them when that happens. Once one person on the cruise ship gets it, you sort of have to quarantine the whole cruise ship because it can be spread different ways, surfaces and everything like that. It's pretty impossible to keep that from spreading.
Now, I noted, I guess just recently, some of the governments involved had arranged evacuation flights for some of their citizens on the ships. But
right.
Special preparation for that, obviously.
If you can get your people off, then you can quarantine them in your own country. You can quarantine them, say, in the United States. in special quarantine areas, prevent anybody who hadn't got the virus from getting it at that point, and monitor them. I think, don't hold me to this, I think it's either 2 or 3 weeks. But the good point is, once you get them into your own country, you have them under your control. You can monitor them. Anybody who hasn't got the virus, you can prevent from getting the virus. And then you can also monitor their health to see if anybody gets sick. Only a small percentage of people get sick from the virus, but when they get sick, they can get very sick sometime.
Now, I think we had heard, maybe we even talked on our last show about it, Terry Cox may have mentioned it. Are there particular locations that are being set up to house people suspected to have the virus?
I know that the United States has at least one, and they may have more because I haven't checked lately. I know they have one military base. I believe it's in Texas, and they may have more. But those military bases are specially set up to quarantine people. The problem is once somebody gets into the United States with it, and they almost have to send them to the hospital, and the hospital will then quarantine them there. Hospital quarantine is about as good as a government quarantine. But once somebody is suspected of having it, they have to quarantine them until they test for it. And if they test positive, then they have to quarantine for a specific amount of time.
I think Mary has a question.
Well,
maybe the same one as I do.
Hi, Mary, how you doing?
I'm fine, Corey. How are you? I wanted to, there's a couple of things. One of the things that I had heard was, I think this was a YouTube video of somebody who was working on a cruise ship, and he was a performer. So when he got off the cruise ship, and I think this was in Thailand, and they said, "Are you a passenger?" He intentionally interpreted that to mean he was not a passenger, he was an employee. Anyway, he ended up getting on a plane and flying back to the United States. Now, I don't think he had any symptoms, but couldn't he have really been responsible for then infecting that entire plane?
In theory, yes. I think that was in Cambodia. In theory, yes, he could have. Now, I don't know what the outcome of that was, but in theory, either through airborne droplets, just almost even breathing, or surfaces, yes, he could have contaminated the plane, and then you have the possibility of a super contaminant.
Right, and then he was talking further to say that it was a 15-hour journey, evidently, and even though he was sitting in the middle of 5 people, he was still grateful to be on the plane. So, I mean, really in close contact with other people.
Right. And it wouldn't matter even if he never left his seat, because, again, it can be transmitted by surfaces. So, all he had to do was, just at any point have some contact with the surfaces with the coronavirus. Somebody else can pick it up from that, and then it can spread very easily. So, in theory, yes.
And then they also said on the news that Omaha is the hospital that they're using for quarantine. And
is that the one?
Yeah, and then at one point in time, that hospital for quarantine was set up for Ebola.
Yeah, I mean, there are a whole bunch of, for something like corona, which is, and Ebola is not as contagious as corona, but for something for as contagious as corona, you really need, major league quarantine equipment, full body suits, special rooms, special access. I mean, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I was reading that I believe that there's some rumors that this was spread out of a laboratory or a laboratory fire somewhere in China that had the coronavirus, and this is a especially difficult strain or strong strain that actually ended up getting released out of this lab.
You're always going to have those rumors. I'll tell you very simply. No one outside the immediate proximity of that area is going to know that, so I can't comment on that. Typically, coronavirus is a cross-species virus, so it means that people got it from an animal, in some way, eating the animal or having contact with the animal. bioweapons research, the reason bioweapons research is so dangerous is because the people doing the research are at huge risk, too. So, I mean, who knows? I couldn't tell you that, and I don't know if we're ever going to know that. What we hope, and we don't know this, so what we hope is that as the weather gets warmer, the virus tends to die out. And when I say die out, only means that it stops transmitting because it could arise again at any point in the future.
Okay.
Let me just jump in here because it's my job as host to remind everyone you're listening to WRLR 98.3 FM LP, broadcasting from Round Lake Beach, Illinois. You are listening to Dr. Corey Franklin, best known as, I don't know, are you best known as author of Cook County ICU? Or
I'll tell you, what I'm best known as is I was one of Harrison Ford's role models for The Fugitive.
I remember that from the interview. Yeah, you did tell me that. That was a great story.
When I go to give a talk, that's all people want to know. They don't want to know any of that other stuff. What was Harrison Ford like? That's what they want to know.
So what was he like?
He's a very, very nice guy and a very studied actor. He takes his craft very, very seriously. And this was a long time ago. This was more than 25 years ago. But I can tell you, basically every woman around fell for him.
I have the same problem.
We know, Terry. We're trying to stay away from you.
Well, a prolific author as well as a great emergency room physician.
Nice to say that. Thank you.
We'll say. Hey, Mary, I'll let you go back. You were on a great train of questioning, so I'll let you go.
Don't you love that? He butts in and now he wants me to go back. Actually, I was going to, just something you had commented on to prevent people that have been exposed from actually getting the coronavirus. Is there any way to prevent that, or does it just run its course?
Right now there is no way to prevent it that I'm aware of, but the coronavirus, it's called a coronavirus because the virus has a certain crown-like characteristics on its shell. Mm-hmm. A virus, basically genetic material and a shell. It's not very sophisticated. You can't even call it an organism. And what they're hoping now and what they're racing to do is, because they have presumably cracked the protein coat of the shell, that's how you start making a vaccine. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So right now they're working on a vaccine, but until they have a vaccine, there wouldn't be a good way to prevent the virus except for, again, wash your hands a lot, keep clean, and you have to be lucky that you're not exposed to anybody who has the virus.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. As I saw in the paper or saw it on television, this one couple, I believe they're in New Hampshire, they were on one of those ships, and they are self-quarantining themselves for 2 weeks, just to be sure.
That's a good thing, because alternatively they'd be in a worse quarantine. So I'm sure the health people are watching them. But you can probably do that if you quarantine yourself effectively. But that means, very effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you know what? I think that couple must be really in love.
What, to be together for 2 weeks? 24 hours, 2 weeks?
They were really in love 2 weeks ago. Whether they're really in love after 2 weeks, we'll find out.
Hey, Corey, you mentioned something, and it's somewhat of a segue to a little bit of another topic, and that's the flu. But you mentioned that hopefully as the seasons change, the virus will die out. And we see the flu outbreaks, obviously, during the winter. And,
right.
Why is that?
Well, that's a matter of a lot of debate. There's no question that one reason you see more viral flu and transmission like this in the winter is people are in closer quarters. But there may also be special characteristics of the virus in terms of how long it can last on surfaces based on humidity, based on temperature, and winter may have more ideal circumstances for the virus to hang around. So it's still one of those questions that is up in the air, and you'd have to talk to an epidemiologist for the technical aspects of it, but certainly one reason is the close quarters in the winter and another reason may be the special characteristics of things like the flu and like coronavirus.
Dr. Franklin, you are going to be very impressed. Lou Bruno got a flu shot this year, and I don't know how long. When was the last time you had one?
You know, that's a good thing to have. Everybody should get a flu shot.
Actually, the flu shot, well, I had to really turn, basically I had to turn myself in at my general practitioners. I know Dr. Franklin will be happy on that.
We had to badger and bully and harass him for weeks.
While I was there to discuss my blood pressure, something lawyers never have problems with, they go, hey, you want a flu shot? since your blood pressure may cook you off anyway.
Flu shots, are an effective. They're an effective prevention of the flu. They're not perfect, and a very, very small number have some complications, which are usually very mild. But in the risk-benefits strata that we talk about, everybody should get a flu shot in the wintertime.
I agree.
Me too.
It was almost fun. I mean,
it was fun getting a flu shot?
Yeah, it was almost fun.
Did they give you a sucker and a sticker?
No, they told me. They were amazed that I'm walking around with my blood pressure.
Well, what they should do, Lou, next year is they should use you as a spokesman for everybody getting flu shots.
Probably on that. We unfortunately only have a few more minutes in this. We have a crowded special show tonight. I know you'll like it, but we have to get to a girls' high school basketball playoff game tonight.
Oh, there you go.
But let's see if we can't find out something about the Legionnaires.
Outbreak. Well, actually, Corey is quite well versed on girls' high school basketball, which you don't know.
My daughters played on some of New Trier's best teams.
Yeah.
So
did they go
that was a long time ago.
I won 2 trophies playing basketball when I was in high school. Yeah.
Did they go on to play in college too?
Oh. I played St. Pat's Academy in Des Plaines.
Oh, sure. One of my daughters did play in college at Harvard, and one of my daughters did not play, but she ran cross country at Northwestern.
Okay. Legionnaire's disease is there's been a breakout here in Lake County. Of particular interest to me, my mother-in-law is actually at that facility. She's a resident there. She's not reporting anything really unusual going on there.
Right.
I don't know if you saw the press release today Lake County Department of Public Health put out.
Well, they said they drained the pool. They've shut down the spa. I guess there was some type of fountain, maybe decorative or something like that, that was somewhat involved or they felt was involved in it. So maybe some of those things are shut down now and stopping the spread.
Yeah, Legionnaire's disease, now that's a bacterium, so that's not a virus. And most of the time, an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease is from some waterborne area. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a pool of water or whether it's a ventilation system or something like that. Not all of them, most of them are like that, so they're taking a lot of precautions, it sounds like, with water in a specific facility. But sometimes you never find out what the source of it is, and usually it's not as contagious as the viruses we've been talking about.
Now, Brookdale is a senior citizens facility. I don't know now if you're saying the senior citizens facility, but it's a senior residence. There are extended care facilities there. So it's probably the absolutely wrong place to rear its ugly head, because you do have people.
Most of those things are more virulent. They're more dangerous in older people. But the good news is that the health authorities in all these places, in the counties and the states and everything, are very attuned to going in early and checking that, and they have very good tests for where the outbreak source may be.
Yeah, I mean, well, as you say, it's a bacteria and not a virus, so, I mean, it's not popping up in other places throughout the county. For those of you who haven't visited that location, there's an indoor atrium with almost like a tropical type environment that
It's bad.
there is water like going down it, and you can sit there. Everybody has a little balcony that you could watch this, tropics and hear the water. But I guess that's stopped now.
It's they said that anybody who has visited there, if you're experiencing any pneumonia symptoms, cough, shortness of breath, headache, muscle aches, and fever, you better see your doctor right away and be tested for Legionnaires.
Corey, then me and you ought to have lunch tomorrow.
There are quick tests they can do to test you for Legionella is the bacteria's name. But again, that's more from a common source rather than, I believe, don't call me on this, I believe you can transmit person to person, but most of the outbreaks are from a common source, and it's usually a water source.
Right.
Hey, Corey, we were discussing this a couple of weeks ago with another doctor that happened to be a guest for us, but with the new cannabis law and people now legally being able to smoke cannabis, is that going to be presenting a problem to the run-of-the-mill emergency room?
I would say potentially. I can't give you a good answer, a definitive answer on that, because there are a lot of variables I don't know. I think there are a lot of variables that no one knows. Strength of the drug, how often it's used, but there are certainly possible long-term effects and maybe some acute effects. And I think this is something where we're actually getting our early experience now. This is not something you can predict in the future. We have to see what the early experience is with it, and you have to see what the reporting is and everything like that. The states who have legalized it, they've only had that experience for a little while, and they're just now getting to case reports and looking at things. So it's the short answer to your question, Lou, is it's too early to tell.
Okay. I mean, I'm guessing you saw a lot of it at Cook County anyway, and I guess if there's one good thing about it is that the legal substance you would buy should be pure, and because who knows what you were getting and off the street stuff,
right?
Which always presented some problems.
Right. It's hard to say because it may be purer. It may be stronger, so that's the other side. I don't know what the relative strengths are today.
Yeah, in the old days, people would, we would prosecute. I have background as a prosecutor, and you'd be reading the police reports where they confiscated the stuff, but it turned out it would be, oregano for the most part.
Right.
People didn't know what they were buying out there.
Well, with the stand-up, I'm with the stand-up committee in Mundelein, and the background checks or the information that we've been able to cull is the marijuana now today is much, much, much stronger than it was back in the day.
Yeah, so that may present health problems that we haven't anticipated in the past.
Okay. Corey, closing comment, and then I'm going to have to say good evening, but thank you in advance, and I'm going to have you back on soon. And if you're in, you know where I'm at, and my partner will buy you lunch anytime.
That's good that you volunteered for that.
Yeah. But come by soon. Come by tomorrow if you're free.
Well, you know what? It was a pleasure being on with you and Mary. I really appreciate it, and you're so nice to have me on. What can I say?
No. Listen, I'm not going to wait so long between visits, as they say, and. I do hope to see you soon.
Oh, well, that sounds good. I'd be happy to come on anytime.
Okay. All right. Dr. Corey Franklin, we really appreciate it.
Take it easy. Good luck tonight. Mary, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. Great interview with Dr. Corey Franklin. That was just wonderful. He's an encyclopedia in that experience. Hey, when we got to rush, I'm going to play a few messages here. There's only going to be very few, and then we're going to be back with some talk about Scott's Law, something everybody should know. Don't go away. We won't be long.
LP, Round Lake, Illinois.
Hey, everybody. Wayne Boyker here. Tune into my show called With the Beatles every Thursday from 3 to 4 o'clock p.m. The name of the show, With the Beatles, is exactly what the show is about. Every week, I'll play a number of musical artists along with the Beatles. That's Thursday afternoons from 3 to 4 o'clock for With the Beatles on 98.3 FM, WRLR.
I like doo-wop music. My friends like doo-wop music. But all that counts is you like doo-wop music. I know you do. Admit it, you really do. Mark Shanahan likes doo-wop too. He's got a doo-wopper of a music library and lots of doo-wop energy. He wants to share his doo-wop music with you. So set your fingers snapping and tune that dial to Mark's Doo-Wop Hour every Monday afternoon at 2, right here on 98.3 FM and WRLR and WRLR.FM online. Uh-huh, doo-wop.
WRLR 98.3 FM.
Over there's the water. Whoosh, whoosh. And look at all this stuff I'm standing on. It's called sand, and it's everywhere.
This woman may sound silly to you and me.
It's made up of little tiny pieces of rocks. Teeny little pieces of rocks.
But to her 2-year-old son exploring the world around him, she makes perfect sense.
How does it feel when you touch the sand? Is it warm? Uh-huh. It's hard to hold in your hand, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
Learning starts long before school does, and children are naturally curious. They want to learn, so follow their lead. Take simple, everyday moments, like sorting laundry or playing on the beach, and turn them into learning moments.
Is this water? No. Very good. This is sand. Oh, no, it's not food. It's sand. We don't eat sand.
Turn everyday moments into learning moments. Find out how at bornlearning.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to the second half hour, and tonight the final half hour of our abbreviated CERTS Presents show. I am Lou Bruno, your host. Terry, Mary, and Ann are here. We're doing a great job. We had a great first half hour with Dr. Corey Franklin. There we go. I'm trying to rush it out tonight because we got to get to a great basketball game tonight at 7 o'clock with Rusty Silver, Deerfield, and Wakanda. And we are now, at this very moment, going to dial out, if I can hit the right button, to Sergeant Thomas Struck. It's working again. I love it when my system works.
Hello.
Hello, Sergeant Struck.
Yes, how are you?
Lou Bruno, CERTS Presents show. How are you?
Great, how are you?
Okay, we're not catching you by surprise.
No, you called right on time.
Okay, great. Say hello to Terry Cox. I know you talked to Terry earlier today.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Terry.
We're joined by our producer, Mary Beedman.
Hi.
And our co-host, Dan Walker.
Hi, Sergeant.
Sergeant Struck is with the Lake County Sheriff's Office.
Yes. And Sergeant, let me ask you just basically what do you do there for the Lake County Sheriff?
Currently, I'm assigned to the administration, and I also take a role in the Highway Patrol Department at the Sheriff's Office. I'm a sergeant.
Okay. Now, I mean, that's a huge job in Lake County, the Highway Patrol Department. About how many sheriff's officers are assigned to that?
We have approximately 90 deputies and sergeants assigned through the Highway Patrol. We have 3 shifts, day shift, afternoons, and midnights. So we have, anywhere from 22 to 30 on each shift. Okay.
Well, I know particularly, and we're a bit rushed tonight, so I'm going to cut to the chase, as they say, no pun intended here. We wanted to talk about Scott's Law, and still a lot of people don't know about it and what they need to do with it. So if you can just run that down in general for the public, give everybody a little insight on that, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. So the Move Over Law, or Scott's Law as it's called in Illinois, because it's called Move Over Law in several other states, basically it requires motorists to move over for any emergency vehicle on the road. So if you see an emergency vehicle with flashing red, blue, white, amber, or yellow lights on the side of the road, the driver must make a lane change if possible with due regard to safety and traffic conditions. And if changing lanes would be impossible or unsafe to the motorist, proceed with due caution, reduce the speed of your vehicle, maintain a safe speed for roadways, and leave a safe distance so you don't whiz by the emergency vehicle and the firefighter or the deputy or the tow truck driver who, is assisting on the side of the road.
Okay. Now, I think you hit an important point. It's just not police or fire vehicles. It's any emergency vehicle that you see out there.
Correct. Okay. Yep. Yes, that is correct. Yep.
Recently, a guy driving a tow truck driver, was stopping to help somebody and was hit by somebody not obeying Scott's law and killed.
Yes, that was earlier this year. Unfortunately, that happened on January 1st out on 290. The tow truck driver was 23 years old and lost his life due to a Scott law violation. So it affects all first emergency responders. Very sad.
Now, and actually this sort of happened to me just locally, where we all live in Lake County, here on our CERTS Presents show. ComEd or vehicles that will do some tree trimming or wire maintenance, would the law apply to them?
Yes, as long as they have their lights activated, then it would. General rule is, anything with a flashing light, move over for and slow down. It's not worth it.
I was driving on 60 today by the Jewel in Mundelein, and there were people, I think it was ComEd, that were working. They did not have any lights, but most everybody, I would say, pulled over and gave them that space, because I think some people are.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the smart thing to do, and it's the courteous thing to do, of course.
Right.
I read a little bit about this. In 2000, this became Scott's law due to an accident involving a firefighter who was killed. And now Pritzker has increased the penalties, made this even stronger. And maybe I'm just going back when I started to drive. I mean, maybe it was someone who taught me somehow or other. I learned, and that was a while ago, to pull over. When you saw a flashing light, you pulled over or you stopped, and that was what you did. Have they lost touch with this? Is there some flaw or something missing in driver's education, that they're not being told that this is what's supposed to be done automatically?
Well, there are questions on the driver's ed test, and my daughter just went through, her driver's education, and they teach. I asked her specifically about this in the classroom instruction that she took, and they did talk about the Scott's law in there. So I can't speak for all, but it is being taught places now. When we do pull someone over, many times for the Scott's law violation, many times we will hear, "Well, we didn't know about it," and you'll get that excuse even, or that explanation for people driving from Wisconsin, because as you know, we have a lot of commuters from Wisconsin that drive, especially down Route 41. But the thing is, it's the law in Wisconsin, and it's the law in, I believe, 49 states today. So everyone should be made aware or should know about the law. So we try to educate people. Obviously, when we pull them over, we'll give a good explanation as to the reason why we stopped them, what they did, and what they need to do in the future so they don't get any future violations, because it's quite a costly citation.
I think what Mary was referring to when you have to stop is when you hear or see an emergency vehicle approaching from one way or the other. I think that's always been the rule, that you stop and let the vehicle
Correct.
pass.
Yep. Stop and pull to the right,
pull
because
over.
we're taught to pass on the left. And sometimes people just stop or move to the left, and
Wrong.
That's not good. You got to move to the right, or put your turn signal on, so we kind of we know what the motorist is doing, because we're watching a lot of traffic, trying to get places to help people.
Sergeant, in most situations, not all, of course, there'll be the emergency vehicle, the police officer who's probably going to be out of his car. There'll be a civilian vehicle there, maybe a tow truck or whatever, and they're on the right shoulder. Now, as I would be approaching this, say, because I'm on 294 every day, say I see this on 294, if I'm in the right lane, then I need to get over at least to the middle lane.
Safely.
Yeah, safely.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, safely. So if it's like bumper to bumper traffic and you guys are, the motorists are going, 10, 15 miles per hour and you can't move over, then that's one thing. But if you have an opportunity to move to that center lane, you need to do so. And a lot of times, you'll be if people are paying attention, they'll be able to see our lights, half mile down the road. So you have plenty of time to, make that maneuver, and it's the safest thing to do.
The least you could do is slow down. If you can't move over, slow down.
If you can't move over, slow down. Yes.
Right. And, then I guess what you see off, especially during the winter or adverse weather, a car will go off on the left side and, skid off, maybe because ice, snow, or sleet, whatever, and will be in the median, and the vehicles then are to the left. And again, you get over to the right then.
Correct.
If that's happening there.
I'm sorry, isn't that like common sense?
It always was to me, but there's been so many
fatalities,
unfortunate incidents. I can't even say they were going faster than we did before.
You're distracted a lot more now.
Yeah.
With telephones.
You're distracted by, cell phone usage. People texting and driving is a big thing we see, or people on their cell phones, because maybe even if they're not texting, they're still driving and paying attention to their phone, so they have distracted driving as opposed to just focusing on the roadway. Or they have kids in the car and they're trying to talk to the kids in the back. So there's a lot of distractions that the general public has when driving, and it's 1 second can change people's lives. So you always got to be paying attention.
An interesting thing, years ago I was on a field trip. The kids were on a field trip and I was a chaperone. And I'm on the bus and I'm looking out the window on the tollway, and there's a car with a driver reading the newspaper.
That's not
reading the newspaper. He's driving down the tollway. That is distracted driving. That's before cell phones.
Or a woman putting on makeup. Or eating a sandwich.
Makeup, shaving, eating a sandwich. All those things are distracting. People may not realize it, but it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
We handle multiple, property damage and personal injury accidents each day. Not just the Scott's Law, but the general accidents. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are just your regular fender benders, but are caused by those distractions. Like I said, it could take 1 second, and you could rear-end a car.
Let me just reintroduce the audience. You're listening to the CERTS Presents show on WRLR 98.3 FM. It is our privilege to be here with Sergeant Tom Struck of the Lake County Sheriff's Department, particularly their highway division, which I was surprised, God, the number of officers that you have in it. But it's a big county, and there's a lot of roads to cover. And we've been talking particularly about Scott's Law here the last few minutes. The other real cautionary vehicles, I'm maybe not using the right terms, but school buses. And I still think people are confused as to what they're supposed to do when they see a school bus.
There's a stop sign. How can they be confused? Stop.
Well, so go ahead, Sergeant.
I'm sorry, that really ticks me off. Go ahead, Sergeant.
If you see the school bus arm, and it's there's one direction, say a roadway is one lane west and one way east, then both directions need to stop for that school bus. You can never pass the school bus from behind. Now, if you have a four-lane roadway, then if the school bus arm goes out, only the traffic going the same way as the school bus needs to stop. The other traffic could go because it's a bigger road. But if, say, that you're on Route 120 going through Wildwood, and there's one lane of eastbound traffic and one lane of westbound traffic, that bus stops, the red lights go on, the stop bus or the stop sign goes out, both directions need to stop until the sign is removed by the school bus driver.
Right.
And that's a common issue because people are in a hurry, or they are not paying attention, or some people just don't care. So and it's dangerous.
Yeah, I think too. What is, obviously, if you live up in the Lake County area, a lot of us are in subdivisions. You're getting out in the morning. The school buses are coming through. The kids are out on the corners, and a lot of them. There's traffic coming for 3 or 4 different ways. The kids are on opposite corners, and at least in my neighborhood in Mundelein, the streets aren't exactly level, so to speak, and the school bus will be on the street that's a little bit, maybe 50 yards down to my left or right. And you see this, they got the stop sign out, but should I turn right? Because that path would be clear, even though that school bus 50 feet away has got the sign out, so it's always very confusing. For me, when I just see kids out on the corner, I just sort of stop. And
yeah, that's
just take off.
That's the best way to do it, because it only, I understand people are in a hurry to get to work and places to go, but if you just, especially in these subdivisions, just stop. It only take 15 to 30 seconds, and then proceed. A lot of times, even when we're on regular patrol and we stop a car for speeding, that vehicle usually gets stopped at the red light anyways. So no matter if you're going, 15 miles over the speed limit or going the speed limit, you're going to end up at that traffic signal, that red light anyways. And people don't realize that, and then they get pulled over for speeding even though they're at a stoplight.
Right.
So it's just better to be cautious.
Yeah. I think everybody is pretty much clear on cell phone usage. Now, basically, don't touch your cell phone is what it comes down to.
Correct. It has to be a hands-free device. So it cannot be in your hand. It can't be texting. You can't be dialing the phone. It's got to be a total hands-free device in order to use it while you're driving.
That's even distracting.
Yeah.
Hands-free is still distracting.
That's just as distracting as you're correct.
Yeah.
So it's not against the law, but it's not a good practice to do.
Now, I think most newer vehicles, you're able to program that through.
Pair your phone.
Pair your phone, and you have a screen there. But it is legal to, on your pairing device, whatever it is, that screen there that replaces the radio, or is the radio too, you can't operate your phone through that. Am I correct?
Yes, you can. Yep.
Okay. On it. So, but I think now, when you're approaching both schools and fire stations, there's usually the school zones that you're supposed to reduce speed on, and I always get a little confused. If the kids are in the school, nobody's out on the street, you don't have to reduce your speed on that?
Correct. It's just when children are present. So if they're getting in and out of the school, if they're being dropped off with their parents, if they're getting on and off the bus, if they're out for recess, anytime a student could be seen, then that could be enforced. And obviously, as a driver, you should always reduce your speed a little bit because you don't know the kid's school schedule for the most part. Did they have an early dismissal that day? And all of a sudden, you're used to going, through that school zone at the regular speed limit, but the kids are out that day for some reason. So It's always good to slow down. But you're correct, only when children are present.
Okay. And we got time for one more question, but it'll be special interest. It'll be the fire stations. I'll ask Terry or you. When you're approaching the fire stations, you'll normally will see the markings on the street. But again, unless they're making a run, unless you see them come out, in which there are special markings and lights, is that correct? You need to slow down or stop.
Yeah, you need to slow down or stop, not stop in the their driveway entrance. And the roadways will be marked, and usually there'll be a couple signs. Do not stop there, because you could be stopped at a traffic signal for a minute or two, and the fire truck wants to come out, and if they can't get out, then that's an issue. So we have to think of our friends at the fire department too, because they might be going to your family members' lives to save them.
Exactly.
So,
you have to yield it right away.
Correct.
All right.
Also, when I used to drive fire trucks and we approached a school bus, we were required to stop, even if we're responding to a fire. Now, generally, the driver would see you coming, and they would pull the sign in and stuff and make sure no kids were disembarking the bus. But we were always required to stop.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sergeant, we got to roll. I really thank you for coming on. We really went and covered a lot of areas, so this has been great. And
I'm glad that I was able to come on, and I appreciate you guys' time and letting me come on to the show and share a few traffic safety pointers.
No, a wonderful job, and hopefully we'll see you someday in studio here.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you. Sergeant Thomas Truck, Lake County Sheriff's Department. Great job. Really informative there, and we did cover a little ground. Jill Hughes, our contributing editor, is here. She's made it.
Showed up for the end,
Yeah, you showed up for the end, but we're taking care of some business. We're doing some. We're going to use our time tonight to do some production issues. But this was a great show. I mean, we really got a lot in the hour. Dr. Franklin is just wonderful. Great author. Pick up his books. Maybe I shouldn't say that here, but pick up his books. Stay tuned for some really exciting
Hold it.
high school basketball.
I have a reminder.
Oh, yes, okay.
We've got early voting starting on March 2nd, various locations throughout the county. It actually will run through the 16th of March at some locations. You have to look online to see what's going to be on. It starts at 9 to 5 on the weekdays, and I believe there's Saturday and Sunday hours at some locations. This will allow you to register to vote at any one of these locations. However, if you wait to do registration until the election, which is the 17th of March, you can only register at your polling place.
Okay, well, it's always a great idea to get out and vote early. I guess the expectation is there's always there's always bigger turnouts, bad English, Lou, in presidential election years. So if you want to avoid the lines, really go out and vote early. We got to listen to a great basketball game and the call of the game with Rusty and Norm there tonight. Thanks for everyone coming by. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We usually have some expanded election coverage. We're going to talk about that maybe next election, about where to vote and how to vote and such. But otherwise, for Terry, Mary, Ann, Jill, and myself, Lou Bruno, your host, thank you for listening, and stay tuned. Dave Rich, by the way, will not be on tonight, but he'll be back next week, although that may be earlier again because of basketball. Good night, everybody.